So I want to talk about an interesting data structure called array of objects. Array of objects. That is when you have an array that contains many objects. For most of the tasks you're going to be doing, most of the tasks will require you to use this data structure. That's why I'm introducing it to us. Most of the tasks you'll be doing will require you to use an array that contains many objects. Let's look at how the data structure is. So let's say I have a variable and I call it obj, or let's say objs. Then that objs is an array, but this array has many objects in it. So let's look at the objects. So let's say first I have a name, and the name is Taye. I have a department, and the department is CSC. I have a school, and the school is Unilearn. I have another object. This first object contains information about a person. Remember, an object holds information about a particular item. Remember, an object contains information about a given item. So I have another object that will contain information about another item or another person. So this person also has a name, and this is Kenny. This person has a department, and let's say this is let's say software, and this person has a school, and let's say the school is SQL. Let's add one more object to it so that we have 3 objects inside this array. Name, let's say this is Idowu. Department, let's say this is BCH, and let's say school. Let's say this is Lautech. So we have these 3 objects inside this big array. Now we want to do something. We want to be able to add a new person to this list. We want to add new person to this list. Let's do that first. I want to add new person to the list. So let's have inputs. Let's say this is a bit of type text. It has an ID. The ID is name, my name. Let's have another input to add department. It has an ID. Let's call it my department. Let's add one more input. Let's say it's of type text. Let's say it has an ID, and the ID is my school. Now let's have a button. You can say add person. So this is it. We are going to fill these 3 inputs. We type the name, okay. We have this. Let's add placeholder so that we're going to know which is which. So we have this name, we have this department, and we have this school. So when we click on this add person, this person will be added into this array of objects. Hope you understand what we want to do. Show you what. Please, are we together?
Yes, sir. We are with you. I'm with you.
Yes, sir. Sister Moja, are you together? Are we here? Are you with us? Oh, she has gone. Okay. So we have these three inputs. When we fill these three inputs and click on this button, we are going to get the information and add it to that object. So let's do that together. We now add and click. We call on a function called add person. So let's create the function together. Function add person. So first, let's get the information, the name, the department, and the school. We can say variable name equals to my name dot value. Variable department equals to my department dot value. Then variable school equals to my school dot value. So with this now, we've gotten the name, the department, and the school from whatever the user types inside these three inputs. Next is we want to find a way of adding that to this array. So we can now say objs, which is the name of this. Okay, let's do it step by step. Let's say new person. Let's get a variable called new person. Variable new person equals to, you create an object. Now look at the structure. The name here, this is a property name, this is a property department, and this is a property school. So we want the new person that we're going to be creating to look like this. We want it to look like this. So that's why we are putting name here. You can say let name be name. What does that mean? Create a property inside this called name and let the value be this name. Let me, okay, so that is not going to be confusing. Let's remove this for now. So that is not going to be confusing. Let's do it this way instead. Okay. So we are saying let's a property called name. Let the value of that property be my name.value. That is, come to this place, pick whatever the user sets inside this place, and set it as the value of the name property. Do you get it, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm with you, sir.
Okay, so let's get another property called department. And let it be my dpt. Oops. Let it be my dpt. My depth dot value. Then school. Let it be my school. That's value. So we have these three properties inside it: name, department, school. We can now push, this is an object, sir. This is an object.
Yes, sir.
So we can now push this object into this array, objs, because this is an array of objects. So we can have the new object inside it. We can now say objs dot push. What are we pushing? We are pushing new person. We are pushing new person. So let's see what happens. We now say console log. Let's say console log objs. Who's back? Okay, system ready. So let's open our console. Oh, running low. Wow. Okay, sorry. Please give me. Let me stop recording. So we have this object. This object has a property called name, and the value is whatever the user types inside this input, which is the ID here is my name. So my name dot value is the value of this property name. Same with department. Department, it has a property called department, and the value is my depth dot value. Then it also has a property called school. Let me make it neater. Let me make it a bit neater. Okay, so we have an object. It has a name. The value is my name dot value. It has a department. The value is my depth dot value. It has a school, and the value is my school dot value. Then we are now pushing it inside this OBJS. So when we push it, it's going to create this object and push it inside this OBJS. So, and it will log the OBJS to the console. So it's a log it to the console. Let's run it on browser and see the results. So let's go to the console. So I will type a name here. Let's say I type Jacob. Department, let's say the department is APH. So let's say school, the school is Junior Osun. So Jacob APH Junior Osun. Let's click on this button and see what happens. Now we have an array of objects in the console. Remember, we only have 3 objects here. We have 3 objects here. But in the console, we have 4. That means it has added 1. Let's look at all the objects together. So can you see the 4th one? It has pushed it inside that array of objects. Let's now say we want to display all of this on the browser. Let's say we want to display all of this on the browser. So let's create a table. Let's say we have a div. Let's give this an ID of, let's say, display. We can display it inside this div. Yes, we can do that. So what we can just display name, department, school. Name, department, school, name, department, school, something like that. So let's display all of them. Let's get a function called displayed persons. So let's get a let's say a variable called results, and inside this we have a div. We have a div. Now name, let the name, what we want to do first is this. Let the name be the first person here, get the name here. So that will be Taye, get the department of the first person CSE, and get the school of the first person Unilearning. Let's do that together. So here we say OBJS index 0. That will give us the name of the first person, Abby. So that will give us the first object, Abby. Now, please, are we together?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. When we say OBJS index 0, that will give us this first object inside this array. We can now say dot name. That will give us Taye. Shall I understand? Hope you understand what you are doing.
Yes.
OBJS index 0.name, but the problem we have here is this. If you run it on the browser, let's try to display it inside this display. We now say display dot inner HTML equals to results. Let's do that. Next, we've not called on this function. You know, when you don't call on a function, nothing happens. Abi now. Shall I understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
So let's call on the function here. So that immediately the page loads, it will see this function and call on it immediately. Immediately the page loads, to pass the day we are launching the function so that we can see it. Now look at something. We have this. It's not seeing this variable. It's just seeing it as ordinary text. That means we need to find a way of taking this OBJS index 0 out of this string. How do we go about it? Who can help us? The reason it's saying this as ordinary text is because it is within this string. Let's take it out of this thing so that you understand what you're saying. Let's remove all this. Remove all of this. And let's run it. So we see it inside it. You can see the tire. Abi now.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
okay, thank you, sir. So what we want to do is we want this to be out of this thing. How do we go about it? You can help us based on what we've done so far.
We want the obj.name to leave the.
Yes, sir. To be out of this string. We don't want it to be within string, so that it's going to see it as variable, not as string. Concatenation. Shall I not say concatenation?
Yeah.
Shall I get there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. So with this now, this needs to be in quotes because about your div equal in quote is going to back error. This part needs to be a string, but this part, this OBJS index 0.name should not be a string, so that it's going to be seen as a variable and not a string. That's why we are writing the codes this way. So with this now, if you now put the name, it's going to bring that variable for us. So we have name is Taye. Let's add the department and the school. Please, do you have any question here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, ma. You can ask the question, ma.
I'm confused. Why is it that we are making use of div since we've already created the div in the HTML?
Okay. What is going to happen is it will take all of this like this. Then it will place it like this. So this is how the results will end up being. Do you understand? So when we want to create for the next person, that is for the Kenny, we create another div again for the next person. Then for the Dowu, we create another div again. Do you understand? We want to create a div for each person so that just to make things better, instead of just dumping everything directly inside this div. Each of these objects, we have a div. That's what you are trying to do.
Okay.
Do you get it, man?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have this for the name. Let's add the department and the school. Well, we can even put this in a span. So this span name, let's have a span for the department, another span for the school. That's good. We get another span. So inside this, we have the department. Department will be OBJS index 0 dot dpt. Like this. Of course, you know that for you to see this variable, this needs to be out of quotes. So what do? We concatenate again. So close this. Then use your plus sign. Then concatenate and put your quotes. So we are done with the past 22. Good. Let's put a little space between both of them. So let's go to the next one for the score. Get another span. Score. Then objs index 0 dot score. So concatenate. Good. Fine. Any questions so far? Ṣé a lè tẹ̀síwájú?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hey.
Let's add the remaining two persons now. That is for Kenny and Idowu. What you can do is you can just copy all of this now and paste it here. So we change this 0 to 1. So we say the result now. Then let's do that of the last person. Copy, paste everything here. The change is 0 to 2. Ṣèbó yé wa lọ bẹ́yẹn.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni sir. À ń bá lọ. Àkọ́kọ́ ń bá lọ.
Alright. Now there's a little problem with this approach, Louis. There's a problem with it. The problem is this. If we had a new person, you know there is a button here to add new person. If we add a new person by clicking on this button, this function will only display the first 3 persons, not all of them, because we are encoding this index 0, index 1, index 2. Since we stopped at index 2 here, even if we have 10 objects inside this array, even if there are 10 objects here, this will only display the first 3 persons. Do you understand? Because this is index 0, and it could display index 0, the name of the first person, department of the first person, school of the first person, the name of the second person, the department of the second person, and the school of the second person, the name of the third person, the department of the third person, and the school of the third person. Do we understand what's going on?
Yes, sir.
So that's the problem we have now. Let's quickly adjust it. So that instead of we encoding this, we are going to say display all the persons inside this array, so that even if you have 100 objects in, it's going to display all the 100 objects. So let's do that together. So I will delete this now and adjust our codes. So let's get a loop. So I should have used some of those codes. I'm coming. I just come here. Just copies. Okay. So I'll explain it. Please give me some second. I'll explain everything now. Let's see, let me explain what's just happened now. We have a function called display students. Inside this function, we have a variable called results. And this result is an empty string.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, we have a loop. For I variable I equals to 0, I less than the length of this OBJS. You know, if we have now we have 3 objects here. We have 3 objects. It means it's I will first be 0, Abi.
Yes.
So it's going to come to this loop and enter this loop because 0 is less than 3. The length of OBJS is 3. So it's going to enter this loop and say OBJS index I is 0. So index 0 dot name. So it's going to put Taye here. Shenya Yowa.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Then OBJS index I dot department is going to put department of Taye, which is of the first object, which is CSC. Here. Then OBJS index I dot school is going to put Unilearning here. That's for the first one. When it's done, it will come here and say I plus plus. I becomes 1. Is 1 less than 3 because the length of the object is 3. Is 1 less than 3? Yes. I becomes 1. So OBJS index 1 dot name, that is Kenny. Then OBJS index 1 dot department, that is software. OBJS index 1 dot school, that is SQI. Share in your
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Then I plus plus I becomes 2. Is 2 less than 3? Yes. OBJS index 2 dot name, that is Ido. Then OBJS index 2 dot department, that is BCH. Then OBJS index 2 dot school, that is Lautech. So with this now, we have the 3 inside it. So even if you have 100 objects now, it's going to, since we are saying OBJS dot length, so it's going to do it based on the length of the OBJS. Shenya, you are going.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, sir. Now, when we are done with the loop, let's now say display dot inner HTML equals to results. Let's look at a little bug. We're going to fix this bug together. Let's run it. Now, if you notice something, it is only displaying the last objects. It is not displaying the first 2 objects. That of the Taye and the Kenny is not displaying it. It is only displaying that of Idowu. Do we notice that?
Yes.
So let's fix this. Now let's first discuss the reason for this, then we fix it together. Reason is this. I explained something to us the other day. Now let's assume I have, let me scroll up to it here. We have this here. Let's say we say display dot inner HTML is 6, display dot inner HTML is 7, display dot inner HTML is 8. On getting to the browser, we only see 8 inside display. We are not going to see 6 and 7 because this thing happens very fast. If the first put 6, immediately to change it to 7, immediately to change it to 8. And since this is the last one, when we get to the browser, we only see 8. Shall I understand the answer?
Very sir.
So we can now do something. We can now say plus equals to 7. So this is going to get the initial value, which is 6, and concatenate 7 with it. Same thing, plus equals to 8. This will get the initial value and concatenate 8 with it. So at the end of the day, we're going to see 6, 7, 8 inside this div. So this is the same approach that we are going to use for inside this place. So instead of saying results equals to this, we can say plus equal to this. So this is what happens. I is for 0. OBJS index 0 dot name, which is Taye. OBJS index 0 dot department, which is CSC. OBJS index 0 dot school, which is Unilearning. It will first place it inside the result. Remember, result is an empty string. Result is an empty string. So to concatenate it with whatever it says there. I concatenate it. So it will now set it there. So at the end of the day, we are going to see this inside results. When it's done and I becomes 1, OBJS index 1 dot name. Remember the first time what it be 0 if you to get 0 shall get there.
You bet, sir.
Thank you, sir. So this second time, to index 1 dot name, which is Kenny. Index 1 dot department, which is SQI. index one dot school, index one dot department, which is software, index one dot school, which is SQI. How to concatenate the mobile to bambe tele so that it's not going to replace it. Instead, it will concatenate it with it. Then the same thing for the third person. When we are now done with everything, after concatenating everything, then we are now putting it inside display dot inner HTML. So this is going to give us what we want, but we still have some things to fix. Now, why don't we put this here? Let's first look at this. Why is this not here? Now it's fine. It's as though everything is fine, but the problem is running this code here 3 times, and since we can make it like based on the number of items inside this objs, but since it can work the same way by putting it out, meaning if you only run it once and we still get the same result, then there's no point making it to run it 3 times. As much as possible, avoid putting codes in loop if you can avoid it. Whatever code you can avoid putting inside the loop, avoid it, because codes in loop run over and over and over again, like it keeps running. Meaning if you have 100 items inside this thing, it's going to run this code 100 times, and it will keep, and the more the codes it runs over and over again, the slower your application. So if you can avoid it, please do. Please do. It will really be of help. I think over the weekend, one of my former students reached out to me. She was preparing for an interview and she was trying to build an application. Now she used a lot of loops in her codes. She used a lot of loops and the application was slow. So when we discussed, I told her, well, you use loop and you know the implication of this. So she was fetching a lot of items at the same time, about 4,000 items at the point, at the single time, 4,000 items. Now, inside that 4,000 items, she was still on another loop again inside it. So it was like loop inside another loop, and the more the loops in your application, the slower the application.
Loop.
So I said, okay, we can do something about it. Reduce this loop. But if the loop should be removed, the application will not work as expected. So we now find a way to limit the number of information the application was fetching per time. From 4,000, we try to limit it to 10 per time. So that instead of running loop over 4,000 items, you will only run loops over 10 items at a single time. Do you understand? Instead of running loops over 4,000 items, you will only run loops over over 10 items at a single time. I'm sorry that I'm a bit digressing, but this tells us the implication of this. If you are using Facebook and you log into your Facebook account, now when you log into your dashboard, it will fetch some information of those people that you are following, of your friends. It will fetch their post and show it to you at once. Now, but it's not going to fetch all of the information. That's because it's like, imagine you have 5,000 friends. So it's going to fetch all of the 5,000 and on a loop to display all the information at once. It's going to kill Facebook, because you are not the only one doing it. Millions of people are also, or billions of people are visiting Facebook at the same time. So the server cannot serve everybody. What they do instead is this. When you log into Facebook, it will fetch information of few of them and display it. When you now scroll to the bottom of the page, you will realize that it will lag a bit. It's going to slow a bit when you scroll to the bottom. As though it's fetching something. Like, as though something is So what it will do is this. It will now quickly go to the back end again and go and fetch maybe another 10 or 20 again and bring it to the front end. So when you now get to the bottom again, it will slow down again and quickly go to the back end.
Bring up,
that's what happens. So that it's not going to kill the server. The server cannot serve too many requests at the same time. With that now, your application will not break. So you want to limit the number of things you do inside the loop. Almost all applications are doing this thing. Google has the way of doing theirs. In terms of Google, what they do is, when you Google anything, when you Google search anything, Google has some numbers at the bottom. So
one page, 2 page, 3 page.
So when you click on 2 or 3, or let's say I click on 5, it's not that it has fetched everything at once. No, it doesn't. It has only fetched about hundreds of them at a single time. Like, only few of them. It has fetched some of them at once, but not all of them. So when you now click on next, it will quickly go and continue from where it stopped and fetch more so that it can quickly run loop over limited items. You want to run loop over limited items. You don't want to run loops over a lot of items because it will kill your application. How come I must stop the application? Your browser will stop working and all of that. So the summary of all of this, or the reason for studying all of this, is that you want to limit the number of things you do inside a loop if it is possible. In fact, we avoid loops as much as we can. God helping us, if you're able to get to the stage 5 and 6, we're going to do a new programming language called Solidity, and we understand more of these things, why loops like this are even avoided in such languages. Like loops inside another loop will kill your application. So avoid loops as much as you can, but you can't always avoid them. Like, they are our unavoidable enemies. We can't. We need them. So, but whatever code you can put outside loop, please put it outside loop. But if I thought it's going to be inside loop, let's ensure that this loop, the number of items we are looping to is not much. We try to limit it as much as we can. So that's why we are putting this here. So let's move on now. Now with this now, even if we have 100 or 1,000 items here, this loop we handle is going to display all the students for us. Chan, any question?
So now what? Okay, Timoji, you can ask a question.
Ask a question first, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now the point I'm making, the question I wanted to ask is this, sir. So from the input, what it means is that we can add more items from the input on the browser, right?
Yes, sir.
And it will display next to the last one that was created by you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So let's do something. When we add a new person.
Done, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. My question is that why do we need to set results to empty string before writing the
right from here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if we say we can't just come here and say results plus equals to. Before you can use plus equal to, it means that there is a variable somewhere called results. I don't know if you get it.
Yes, sir, I'm getting it, sir.
If there's a variable somewhere called results, and you are concatenating everything here with that variable, so we can't just come and say plus equals to. By placing it here now, we've first created a variable called results. Then we can now say result equals to result plus all of this, so that you concatenate all of this with this empty string. Do you understand it, ma'am?
Okay.
Shall I understand?
Yes.
Okay. Let's add a little thing to our code. We're going to say when we had a new person, call on this function display persons. When we add a new person, call on this function called display persons. Because if you don't do that, let's see what happens. If you complete that thing with display persons, this is the only place we are calling on display person. And meaning when the page loads the first time, it will call on the function and run the codes there. But the problem is, what if we now add more persons? We want the page to know that we've added new persons. Do you understand? I come again. We have a function here called display persons, and we are calling it here. This is outside all functions, meaning immediately the page loads, it will call on that display persons, and it's going to do all of this. Abina?
Yes.
Abina?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what if we now add a new person? If you add a new person, since you are not calling on this function display persons again, nothing happens. Although a new object has been added, the browser, this part, in fact, let me show us what I mean. Let's add a new person. Let's say we have Titi French Unilag. Now, we now have 4 persons here. But this HTML, I mean this part, the browser, this part that we can see, still has three persons. Could he have the fourth person more? Do we understand?
Yes.
That's because we are not calling on this function display persons again. Oh yeah, so that when we call on it again, this display.inner.html can update it.
Okay.
So we can now come here and say display persons. So by doing this, it's going to run all the codes here again. Shall you understand?
Yes. So each time we want to add person, it will run the code again and again.
Yes, once you add a new person, so that the HTML, the DOM, these parts can know that something has been added and it needs to update it.
And we added it. Yeah.
But let's look at a little. Let's save it and run it, and this will lead to a little bug that we fix together. But let's look at it together. So we have this. Let's add a new person. TT French Unilag. Let me start the Unilag with capital letters. Okay. Okay, fine. It's even working fine. So we have this. We have the we have this. We have this. It's working fine. And the reason why it's very easy to work fine is because of this single line. You understand what I mean now? Let's assume this line is not there, and instead we write our code like this. Okay. So let's say our code is like this. You understand what we are doing now? Can it be code we are sharing? And you see it's working fine, Abby. But I'll call load. It's working fine.
Yeah.
But let's add a new person. The reason I'm showing us this is because this thing that I'm about to fix for us, it's a common problem. Like, it's a problem that you most likely face while working on an application, and you may not, like, you may find some issues debugging it, fix it, and all of that. But once you understand the problem, then getting the solution will be easier. Now, look at what is happening. We now have 7 students or 7 persons here. You know what happened? First thing
Yes.
it now started again.
Oh, yeah.
Let's discuss the reason for this error. Initially, we only had 3 persons. But now we have 4 persons. So this is what happened. Initially, display.inner.html will start as empty string because there's nothing here. Because on the big bag. So it's going to start as empty string, then concatenate the first person with the empty string and set it back. Then concatenate the second person with the empty string and set it back. Concatenate the third person with the empty string and set it back. That's what this line is going to do for us. So we're going to see the first 3 persons, which is fine. Should be here,
Yes.
So let's now see what happens when we click on this button, add person. It's going to create this object, then it will push it. Meaning we now have 4 objects inside OBJS. Then it will call on display persons again. Let's see what happens now. I is 0. I less than OBJS.length. The length is now 4, no longer 3, is now 4. Now, display.inner.html, this that is going to concatenate the first person and set it back. Remember, when we first executed this, it added 3 persons to the page. Abby, it displayed 3 persons to the page. Shall get there?
Yes.
So this will now add the first person again back to whatever it sees inside this page. But you can get a cartoon shell. I come again. When we load the page the first time, we only add 3 persons. By your mark with display person. No, when you load the page the first time, it's going to call a function display persons, and it's going to run the codes here. Now we have this loop. This loop, we put the 3 persons and display them on the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, when we now add a new person, we now have 4, no longer 3. But also keep in mind that we have the 3 persons already displayed on the screen. Let me load the page. Let me load it so that we understand. We have these 3 persons inside display.inner HTML already. Ó ti wà ńbẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn. Ṣé à ń get ẹ lọ?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir. So we have that on the page already. So when we add a new person, OBJS is now 4. Then it's now called on function display persons again. So it's going to run this loop now. High is 0. Is 0 less than 4? Yes. We now say display.inner HTML equals to the initial value of display.inner HTML plus concatenate this with it. But what's the initial value of display.inner HTML? It is this 3. Meta tó wà lójú screen. This is the initial value. Our concatenates OBJS index I is 0 because we are running this loop. I is 0. So now concatenate name with it, concatenate department with it, and concatenate school with it. For the first one, I becomes 1. Then get everything again, concatenate that of this OBJS index 1.name, index 1.department, index 1.school till it gets to the end of the loop. So that's the reason we add 7 objects on the screen the other time. So this is when we have this. We can solve this EU easily by saying that we can use the initial method we used. It's fine. We can use, like, there are different ways you can go about it. You can also say display dot inner text equals to empty. What happened is this: each time we call on this function, first help us to empty display dot inner HTML. First remove everything you see here. Shall I understand?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. First, empty everything. Then you can now start putting things there till you get to the end of the loop. So this will work fine now. So let's add a new person. Let's say we have Peter. Let's say PSG, physiology. Then let's say the school is maybe Uniosun. So it's working fine too. And we can also use the solution we used the other time. It's also fine. But I hope you understand what we just did.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I'm not going to give us any assignments tonight because we still have a pending task. We have a pending task. So please let's work on the task so that we'll be able to move forward and give us another assignment. In our next class, we are going to do local storage. Local storage. Then after that, after teaching us local storage, I'll do a project for us. I think it's fine. I'll do a project for us together. We start a project together in class that day. We complete the project together. Then I can now give us your own projects to work on.
Okay, sir.
All right, sir. Any question? Any question? Any question?
Don't you'll not fulfill. Maybe in our next class, anyway, you promise to finish the game for us. I think.
Okay. But the generator is still on.
Okay.
Okay, let's finish it together. Sorry, I've forgotten. Where is it? Where is this? Where is this? Later I shall tell her. I don't even know where I put it. Maybe let me check if it's here. Oh no. Okay, I will search for a hit on my system so that before the next class,
Okay.
I'll search for
Okay,
it.
sir. Okay.
I think I should still have it. If
Okay,
not,
sir.
maybe I will.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good night, sir.
Yes, sir. Good night, sir. Good night, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks.